Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making millions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/hidden. Protect yourself now at aura.com/hidden.
This is not a commercial for The Way I Heard It with Mike Rowe, the award-winning podcast now entering its 10th year and available wherever podcasts are listened to. No, this is a commercial for Mike Rowe's foundation, which has just set aside $10 million to help train the next generation of skilled workers. That money is available right now at microworks.org. It's waiting for anyone who wants to learn a skill that doesn't require a 4-year degree. Electricians, plumbers, linemen, welders, shipbuilders, HVAC techs. America is desperate for men and women with skills they don't teach in universities. And the MicroWorks Foundation is committed to helping train America's workforce for hundreds of thousands of AI-proof 6-figure jobs just waiting to be filled. Apply today for a work ethic scholarship at microworks.org or support our efforts with a donation of any size. We're closing America's skills gap one job at a time, and we could use your help at microworks.org, MIKEROWE works.org.
Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Before we dive into today's episode, let me share something that I found super helpful lately, because I think it could be really helpful to you too. If you've ever gone through a rough patch in your life, you probably know that those are the moments in your life when your familiar systems break down and the things that used to work for you often just stop working. Now raise your hand if you've experienced a situation like this. Well, you can't see me, but I'm definitely raising my hand. So far, this year has been a real challenge for me on so many levels, mentally, emotionally, physically. And it required me to get out of my comfort zone to test new strategies to stay happy, healthy, and productive. As you probably know, there are two main things driving your overall everyday experience, and that's your physiology and your psychology. And what I've seen happening a lot is that people who are going through a stressful time, they're often focusing on only one of those two pillars and are wondering why things don't improve. Well, the thing is, it's always a two-way communication between those two systems. If you neglect one, the other will suffer too. So whether you're going through a rough patch or whether you're looking to optimize your performance and experience in general, always make sure you're working on your mind and your body simultaneously. And I don't know about you, but I'm an optimizer for sure, and I always look for simple solutions that give me the most bang for my buck. For instance, stress can deplete magnesium levels in the body, and inadequate magnesium can in turn exacerbate stress and its effects. And you simply cannot meditate your way out of a magnesium deficiency. An effective way to help you get out of that negative spiral would be to supplement with magnesium to help your body regulate the deficiency and to integrate meditation or mindfulness to help your nervous system calm down again so that it can get out of that fight or flight mode again. Make sense? Not all forms of magnesium are equal or equally bioavailable, though. To make things even more tricky, different forms of magnesium are also absorbed by different tissues in your body. So you have to make sure to get the right amount of the right forms of magnesium that support your overall health goals. And you don't want any unnecessary additives, fillers, and artificial ingredients. And that's why I love BiOptimizer's Magnesium Breakthrough. BiOptimizer's Magnesium Breakthrough contains the full spectrum of all 7 forms of the most bioavailable magnesium, each with its own unique benefits, along with vitamin B6 to support mental health and promote a healthy stress response. The combination of those different forms of magnesium help you support a lot of different systems all at once. Did you know that magnesium is involved in over 300 biochemical reactions in the body? Yep, you heard that right. From energy production to muscle function, digestion, heart health, sleep, and even mood and cognitive function. Magnesium plays a crucial role in keeping us ticking. I'm taking 2 capsules in the morning and sometimes another one in the evening before bed if it's been a particularly stressful day and I need to help my body calm down and relax, and it really makes a difference. But we all have to run our own experiments to see what works best for us. So why don't you give this a try to see what it can do for you? This could be the one tiny change in your routine that improves your sleep, metabolic health, cognition, energy, and performance all simultaneously to help you be your best. If for some reason you try Magnesium Breakthrough and it just doesn't work for you, you can get a full refund, no questions asked. BiOptimizers are so confident they offer you a 365-day money-back guarantee. If you'd like to test BiOptimizers Magnesium Breakthrough risk-free, head to bioptimizers.com/Claudia and use Claudia10 at checkout for a 10% discount on your order. Again, that's bioptimizers.com/Claudia and code Claudia10 to claim your 10% discount. And if you subscribe, not only will you get more discounts and free gifts, you will make sure your monthly supply is guaranteed. Without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. And my guest today is author, speaker, podcaster, and entrepreneur Rachel Marie Martin. Rachel believes in the power of the human spirit to overcome, to thrive, and to find deep joy. She's the writer behind the site findingjoy.net and author of Get Your Spark Back, Mom Enough, and The Brave Art of Motherhood. And she's also a founding partner in Audience Industries, a company designed to train and equip entrepreneurs in their ventures. Her articles have been translated into over 25 languages. Her site reaches millions of visitors per month, and she has a robust and engaged Facebook community. Her content has been featured in The Today Show, The Huffington Post, Stuff New Zealand, PopSugar, and many more. She speaks worldwide, encouraging others to live each day with purpose and drive. Beyond that, she's a mom to 7 and calls Nashville, Tennessee her home. And to be clear, a mom of 7 is already a hero in my book, so I can't wait to get this conversation started. Welcome, Rachel, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to have this conversation.
Yes, let's do that.
Yes.
Rachel, I read a quote from you that really resonated with me. So the quote is, sometimes you have to let go of the picture of what you thought life would be like and learn to find joy in the story that you're actually living. What does that mean to you? And what was the picture that you had to let go of?
Well, thank you. That quote has been shared millions and millions of times. And for me, what it really means is coming to grips with what your past is and being willing to let the parts go. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with it or all of that, but not letting it define tomorrow. And for me, I ended up writing that at a really hard time in my life. Had gone through a divorce and I struggled with the relationship with one of my children. And it was an estrangement part of time. And at that day, we had decided, the decision came down that he was not going to live with me where I lived. He was going to stay with his dad, which was about 1,000 miles away. Oh. And nobody plans for that. Nobody thinks, you know what, that'll be a really fun chapter of my life. I'd like to have that happen someday. And yet we all have those moments. And as I was mourning that new reality, I heard my other children inside, and I thought of everything I had to do. It was before my other book came out. And I realized I have got to figure out how to live from that point forward, finding joy, so that when our paths intersect again, I'm the best me that I can be for him and myself.
Yeah, that must have been so tough. And this really resonates with me because this year a lot of things happened that just collapsed my life like a house of cards. And I'm about to get divorced too. And one of the toughest things to just contend with is the fact that life did not turn out the way you imagined. And you just know you gave it your all and things still just went south. And it's a hard pill to swallow.
It is. I really believe none of us, when we're going through our education and at the end of it before we go to college or university, none of us ever thought, it'd be really fun is when I turn 40 to go through divorce. None of us put that as our goal. And yet we all have those stories. And it's like trying to figure out what's next and deciding, okay, what I'm going to use the cards that I have now and make my life the best it can be, while dealing with the real sorrow or grief that you would have of having a story that looks nothing like what you expected.
Exactly. And, just to admit and accept that no matter what you do, you just can't control other people or you can't control outside circumstances. And learning to be okay with that has been a real challenge for sure. So what are your best tips for letting go and for moving on?
There's a couple things. One of the things is recognizing that everybody has a different timeline for healing. I think part of letting go and moving on is not superimposing your timeline onto somebody else's timeline. And so, because that would allow for frustration for me, I would want my son and I to reconcile sooner, but I knew eventually we each had these timelines. And as far as moving forward, I think there's a part of us that has to actually deal with the emotion. We tend to push it away, like, I shouldn't be feeling that. I shouldn't be feeling that. And then it just builds up and builds up. And I've learned to allow myself to experience the emotion, but I'll give myself a time limit. Like, you can worry for 10 minutes and then tomorrow you can do the same, because otherwise you're just constantly going back into it over and over. And what I found is when I gave myself permission to experience the emotion, it wasn't like I was in that for 10 minutes. Sometimes it'd be a minute. And then I'd be like, okay, I can move on. I really believe when we stuff stuff down, we're not giving ourselves the space and opportunity to heal.
Yeah, that's so true. And another thing I realized is that the timeline thing is really important, but it's also that, for instance, my head wants to move on, but the heart is not there yet. It's kind of like this internal conflict of you have different, like your organs have different timelines.
That's really true. I totally believe them and all that emotion that they have within them. And I think that that's the hard part about moving on, is logically everybody could tell you, and you could tell yourself, you should move on. You should be happy. You should do all that. But your heart's like, I don't think so.
No.
I'm not there yet.
Exactly. So what have you learned about, say, maybe power dynamics in relationships? What would be red flags next time around?
Where I lose who I am. Where for me, I ended up becoming good externally in the things that I thought I should do. A good mom. I thought I was a good wife. I was a good housekeeper, like housemaker, a homemaker, all of that. But I forgot me. I forgot, who's Rachel? Who was I created to be? What are my gifts? And the red flag would be, you really, actually, let's reverse it. What you really want is that partnership where somebody wants the true you to emerge, and they recognize that you're healthier and you're better and you're stronger when you're allowed to be who you are. The red flag would be like, don't be so, you're too much, or don't do that, or stay in your role. And for me, it's been really, really important to make sure to cultivate that identity and to learn to be happy with who I am, and that happiness isn't dependent upon someone else's opinion of who I am.
Yeah, and I think you really want someone who wants you for who you are, not for what you do for them,
Yes, very true.
right?
I agree with that.
Yeah, and the one thing I realized recently that I hadn't really thought about before is there seems to be two categories of people, and one believes that love is fate, and as soon as things become inevitably harder, they question the relationship, they think they've made a mistake, and they move on in search of that one person that will finally make them happy forever. And then there's the other category of people who believe that love is a daily choice and something to
Mhm.
work on, because what matters isn't so much what the other person can give you, but who you become when you're together. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I do. I think there's a mix of both. I've learned that in life as I've progressed and I've had more and more trips around the sun, is that it's generally there's this both part, because there is this love part where you love that person, but then there is that active choice to love and to show up on good days, bad days, normal days, and days when you're just ready to be like you just need space. And that's okay. That's the love part, is going, you take your walk. I'll stay here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm definitely a category 2 person who believes that there
Yes,
there's something, you have to put effort into a relationship because you always
absolutely.
get out what you put in.
Yes, absolutely. And there is that effort, that part of sometimes the effort is allowing the other person to grow, and in
True.
the relationship, giving them the space, the not that, sometimes we feel guilty about taking time for ourselves, or guilt, and you need that partnership where it's the encouragement. Yes, do the things that make your heart happy, because those things eventually, when then both of our hearts are happy. And what I once heard was, if two people in a relationship aren't confident in who they are and comfortable and filling their own hearts, they're like two vacuum cleaners attached to each other, just kind of sucking the life out of each other, and then there's
Oh,
nothing left to give.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Anyway, how did your kids take the divorce?
As well as I think any would. No, but they don't plan for that either. That's
Mhm.
not the story they want either. Then they automatically, their entire world shifts quickly. And that's where the timeline part comes for me, is giving the grace to them to experience that emotion and to go through their own process of grief and their own really almost new identity that they have to come to grips with, is, who am I now, and how does this look, and how do I, for a lot of them, it's manage. How do I manage two
Mm.
people and
Mhm.
love in a way that I don't understand anymore? So I would say as good as most kids do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think divorce almost always takes a huge toll on kids because they experience that love and loved ones can disappear from one day to the next. And
Yes,
understandably, that creates a lot of feelings of abandonment and anxiety and self-doubt as well,
right,
because kids do blame themselves and think the other
right.
person might have left because they are not good enough or they did something wrong. And this really breaks my heart. So what can we do to help our kids get through that tough time? Anything that you can recommend?
I would say it's being in the same space, existing, loving them in that space. You can reassure them as many times as you can. I love you. It's not you. It's all of that. But again, it's the analogy of, there's this tunnel each of us has to go through, and everybody's tunnel timeline is different. And just existing, loving them, letting them express what it is, instead of coming in and saying, you need to change right now, coming underneath and holding them where they are, and then providing them the resources that they might need. Maybe they need a counselor, or maybe they need a different friend group, or maybe they need to change things up as well. So to me, that's the toughest part, is watching them grieve, or watching them go through the process, and knowing that there's nothing that I can do to make the process easier. Like, I
Mm.
can't change it for them. And if I'm trying to rush them, then the process becomes, oh, there's something wrong with me that I should change. I once had a counselor that said, if she's in a group setting and someone starts crying and somebody hands the tissues over, oftentimes the person who's crying, even though it's a very good intent, feels like I should stop crying now. Like it's like the cue, like it's too much. And sometimes I've just learned that you just have to be able to process the emotion, express the feelings, get it out, and then just have somebody that's there with you.
Yeah, sometimes that's the hardest part, just letting someone have their emotions, letting them have that moment when you feel like, oh, I wish I could just take their pain away, but that's just not how it works.
No, I know. I do know that, like going back to that quote, I do know that, life is like these waves all the time of emotion and experience. And I've counseled even friends that have gone through divorce. And oftentimes I'll be like, it's when you're at the bottom of the wave, you have to remember that there are moments where you'll feel at the top of the world again. It's just, you're in that moment and it's just going to keep moving and you will get through it. I've tell like the track record for surviving all the bad days is 100%. So
Yeah.
you can do it.
Absolutely. Now, what have your 7 kids taught you about motherhood and life in general?
Well, a couple things. A lot to have grace for my own story. I have a daughter named Grace, which I always think is it's very ironic. Like the universe is kind of like, so Rachel, we need to teach you a little bit about grace. So name this child Grace, and then you'll have it in your life. She'll be in your life all the time. But they really have. Like one thing is, you can be the best mom in the world, and your kids are still these independent humans, and if they're going to make a mistake and they're going to fall down. And if I take it as, wow, I'm not a good mom, then I'm not showing up for them in the way that they need at that moment. You're sure there's stuff I could learn, but in those moments, they need me to be their advocate, to be the one that stands by them, the one that helps them figure it out. But if I take everything personally, then I'm losing and limiting the options. So that kind of goes to the grace. Like I've made mistakes, but I try. And like most moms, I don't think any of us wake up and think, today I'm not going to try. Like I'm going to make it a bad day. We really do give ourselves the best. We try our hardest. And for me as a mom, and then as a speaker and a writer, one of the things I really want for moms is to recognize all of our stories can look very, very different, and they shouldn't look the same. And there's a solid connection when we can love each other and meet them where they're at in their story. And that to me is the biggest lesson, is that as a mom is the power of developing friends.
So important. And I know that you went through some financial hardship as well. And I know what that's like. And it really, really takes a toll on your mental and emotional health, doesn't it? So can you paint a picture for us what your life looked like at its lowest point?
So I always tell people, and if someone's listening that's going through financial problems, you're not alone, because you feel completely alone. At least I did when I was going through the financial problems. I thought I'm the only one. And then coupled with it, there's financial problems, there's this hidden layer that society puts of shame. And whether we agree to it or not, we could say we don't. But there was this level of shame that I felt like I would actually think to myself, I was only smarter, I wouldn't be in this spot. Or, I made it like I'm not good enough, all these other things, which stifles solutions and problem solving. So for me, I lived a life on the outside that didn't look like there was financial problems, but I really was in my first marriage in really deep financial issues, where I was counting change to buy groceries and constantly worrying people were knocking at our door. And it wasn't until I decided, you know what, even though I didn't even know about a lot of them, it was my responsibility to figure it out, because I needed to teach my kids that this, no matter what, is solvable. And you need to take ownership. So I really did, I decided that if somebody can get out of this situation, then I wasn't going to limit my own self, my own problem solving capabilities.
Right. That must have been so hard. And thank you so much for being open and transparent about your struggles, because we all need to hear more honest voices and not just see the highlight reels on Instagram.
Right, right. Well, and I think that there's what the irony for me in my life is for years I worked to hide it. I would work so hard, and I tell people when you spend so much time hiding where the struggles are, you don't allow any space for healing because you're spending so much time giving the illusion that everything is correct, that you all of that effort and energy could be going into healing it, but you have to admit where you are. Well, the irony, the full circle is after my first book came out, is I ended up on national television here talking about finances and how I got out of them and becoming an advocate and speaking for many of the state treasurers and all of that and different states about finances and financial reform and financial reform for women. And I just realized that often times the places where we struggle or we have the old layer of shame is the exact place the universe or God or whatever needs us to speak up so we can provide healing for others.
That's so funny you mentioned that because I just posted something today along the lines of life doesn't give you what you want, but it might give you what you need instead. It's kind of like the same thing.
It is. It is. It is. And I remember speaking, I was the morning keynote, and there are all of these fancy, like state treasurer. I mean, just all these people. And I just got emotional thinking, the me 10 years ago thinking about speaking would have been terrified. But then I was so grateful to be a voice for people, for women, and for talking about it and for saying there is no shame. And when we talk about it, we create solutions.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Can you walk us through your step-by-step process for finding your way out of that dark situation that you found yourself in?
The first part is you have to admit where you are. You absolutely cannot try to bury it. You can't, like, whatever you're doing to not look at it, you have to admit where you are. And then it's like dropping the illusion, dropping the mask that you might be wearing. Whatever you're putting up, you have to be willing to set it down. And that might mean people will see, and knowing that you are stronger than all of that. And then it's really incremental, bit by bit changes and choices every day. I knew that if every single day I made a decision that would better tomorrow, there's no way after 365 days of that I would be in the same spot. And it's the whole success thing I think it's Lionel Messi that says he was like a 17-year overnight success.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody that has success has all this very long story of effort that nobody often sees. They don't see the comedian that plays for two people, or the speaker, or the writer that publishes something and there's crickets and nobody responds. Most people only see the after of success. And I've often said that if you want to be a person that gets to share how you did it, you have to go through the many years process so that the after becomes visible. And so for me, I would also, in addition to doing the hard work, would visualize my future self thinking, okay, what would she do? What would that person do? What choices would she make that I should make now? And in that visualization, I started reframing and making, I would say, more confident decisions, more decisions that were riskier, more decisions that were decisive, and doing the hard things.
Great tips. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now, you're an entrepreneur too. So how did you find your way into entrepreneurship, and what has your journey been like so far?
I would say if I look back at my life, I've always had the little entrepreneurial spirit within me. When I was a young girl, I learned how to code. My dad was an early adopter, got a computer in the 80s. And I was just one of those kids that grew up with computers. So then when the internet came around, I joined in Yahoo groups. And at one point, you just would write, everyone would write back and forth. And somebody said, you should start a blog. I really like your blog, your writing. And that was the birth of blogging. So I did. And I think that's an important part about an entrepreneur is most entrepreneurs are early adopters. We're the people that are like, you know what, I'm just going to try. I'll do it. And so I had that decision making. And so I started a blog and I started writing. And I would say that even though I hoped that it would be this where I am now, I didn't quite know the full picture. As a writer, I'd always think it'd be cool to publish a book. But what I did was I started this blog. I learned how to make money. I sold an ebook. I did ads on the blog, and I started growing my Facebook page. And eventually what ended up happening was, while I'm growing my writing portion, is others started coming to me and saying, how did you do this? How did you build your Facebook page with organic reach? Like right now we have 1.1 million and it's all organic reach. I've never paid Facebook. And when people ask you, you either kind of listen to what the universe says to you, or you decide not to do it. And so I would listen. I would be like, you know what? This is information that people were willing to pay for. So my husband and I, we started Audience Industries, but it's my current husband. And we just started teaching and training entrepreneurs, bloggers, and podcasters. How do you take what started out for many of us as a hobby and turn it into a full-time business?
That sounds amazing. So what are your best tips for those busy and ambitious entrepreneurs who don't want to sacrifice their health, relationships, or happiness as they're building their businesses?
So it's all about balancing. And I would say there is no balance in life. You're not going to find that perfect equilibrium because life is going to throw something and it's going to tip again the other way. So it's balancing, but it's also knowing how critical it is that you take care of yourself, that there are seasons in being an entrepreneur where you have to work really, really hard. I give an example of my grandfather. He was a farmer in southern Minnesota where I grew up. And when it was harvest time, my grandfather was in the fields harvesting. I never doubted his love for me. But he wasn't playing toys with me at that moment. He was out there working. But my grandfather also knew that in order to harvest, he had to do all the work prior. So for me, the tips are knowing that when you're starting something, you might not see the end result, and you have to have that faith in it. You have to, know that, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have faith that I'm going to put in the effort to get to the harvest. And for me as an entrepreneur, it meant a lot of times being willing to know that, and for anybody, like anytime you publish anything on social, we all start at zero, and it's okay to be at zero. It's about testing and figuring it out. And when you get something that doesn't work the way you expected, instead of it being a no, like, okay, what could I do? What could I change? What can I learn from this? And that adaptability is what I think it's about. As far as the mental health and the physical is, you have to include yourself on that schedule, is knowing if you're through an intense time of harvesting, what can I do that fills my own soul? What are small things I can do to take care of my mental health? I meditate. I go to a meditation class on Tuesday nights, and it's my favorite thing. And it's quiet. It allows my soul to speak louder than all the chatter of the stuff I need to do. And it gives me peace. But the only way I get there is if I put it on my schedule and then get in the car and actually drive there. So it's that same ferocious commitment to your own health as it is to your business.
So important for sure. Are there any other daily habits that you can share that help you stay happy, healthy, and productive?
I have learned the power of pausing throughout my day. And the pause part, it's just taking a break, maybe a minute, and just recentering myself. Like even before I came on our conversation, I could come on with all the energy and the chaos of the day, and then we could start talking, and I'm bringing with me everything. And what I've learned to do is to take a couple deep breaths and then release whatever it is that needs to be released, so that I can show up as who I'm supposed to be in that moment, without all the to-do lists and anxiousness and all of that. So the pause is great. I've said often, if you get a red light and you're driving, sometimes that's your moment right there. Instead of being like, oh, I've got to keep going. It's like, no, take that break. The other thing that helps me a lot is I'm a runner. So that physical exertion helps, like doing something that gets me out of my house. As an entrepreneur, many of us, we work at home, and we might not leave the house. So I try to do things that put me in different environments.
Yeah, I'm a runner too, so I totally relate to that.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I think that for me as entrepreneurs, and for everybody listening, I think it's just the coolest thing that we get to do. Like, for most of history and most of time, everybody has wanted this opportunity to have a voice, an opportunity, and to create and to do all of this. And sometimes we lose sight of it. We get stuck in the grind and the grit, and we forget about what an amazing opportunity. And I think the best way to honor all of our ancestors and everybody that did all the fight before is to take that step back and look at the opportunities that we have in front of us, and to be profoundly grateful, and to use our voice and our skills to create goodness and light and kindness in the world.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. So last but not least, where can our listeners find you online if they would like to connect or work with you?
All right. Most people find me at findingjoy.net. That's my website. And then on Facebook, it's Finding Joy blog. And then on Instagram, it's Finding and then the little _joy. And then, like you and I talked about in the beginning, I have a new book, Get Your Spark Back, that's coming out. So you can find that anywhere books are sold.
Perfect. Rachel, thank you so much for talking today, for sharing your highs and your lows and everything in between. And thank you for being real and brave, and for facing your demons so that you can guide others to do the same. It's been a joy having you on the show.
Thank you. I enjoyed our conversation. So thank you.
Take care and talk soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. That's a fantastic, easy, and zero-cost way to help the show grow. Just use the link in the show notes and make my day. Want more? For quick, actionable tips and insights to guided meditations and a side of biohacking, join my inner circle and get access to exclusive subscriber-only content. Again, just use the link in the show notes to join the tribe. Thank you for your support, and see you on the other side. Take care and talk soon. Bye.